What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything you need to know on a daily basis, including money, investing, the stock market, the fourth stimulus package update, and stimulus check update. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, make sure to click the subscribe button down below. It's completely free to do so. And remember that new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, thanks for hitting the like button for us down below. We're going to have an interesting time going here forward as the economy and the Fed and Congress has a kind of juggling act going forward here as we're trying to come out of the recession. We have the pandemic here, also new cases on the rise. Remember, China is under a massive lockdown. Recent reports say that up to 400 million people in China are on full lockdown, full or partial lockdown, maybe I should say. But with China, it's it's hard to really say. They've reported only 3 deaths out of China. I know it's really hard to get straight information out of them. But yeah, they're just exploding with new cases, with new variants here. We're actually on the upswing here as well with new cases. And it does kind of make us wonder if we're going to go back to another massive upswing on that as well. But really, the kind of more pressing matter here for us right now at this particular moment is inflation, and which is at 8.5% back in March. Who knows what the April reading is going to be, and also what the Fed is doing. The Federal Reserve is raising interest rates. They've already raised them once here this year on 0.25%, and they say that they're going to be doing them 6 more times this year. And they just had a big meeting which sent the stock market crashing almost 1,000 points here. The Dow Jones crashed almost 1,000 points on Friday because of what Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said. Listen to what he said here, and you can tell me your thoughts. Check this out.
I think markets are processing what we're saying. They're reacting appropriately generally, but I wouldn't want to bless any particular market pricing. The thing I want to say, though, is we really are committed to using our tools to get 2% inflation back. And I think if you look at, for example, if you look at the last tightening cycle, which was a 2-year string of 25 basis point hikes from 2004 to 2006, inflation was a little over 3%. So inflation is much higher now, and our policy rate is still more accommodative than it was then. So it is appropriate, in my view, to be moving a little more quickly. And I also think there's something in the idea of front-end loading whatever accommodation one thinks is appropriate. So that does point, that points in the direction of 50 basis points being on the table. Certainly, we make these decisions at the meeting, and we'll make them meeting by meeting. But I would say that 50 basis points will be on the table for the May meeting. Our goal is to get demand, use our tools to get demand and supply back in sync, so that inflation moves down, and do so without a slowdown that amounts to a recession. That's our goal. And I don't think you'll hear anyone at the Fed say that that's going to be straightforward or easy. It's going to be very challenging. We're going to do our very best to accomplish that. And it's absolutely essential to restore price stability. Without price stability, really, the economies don't work without price stability. We need that to have a strong labor market for an extended period of time. But the U.S. economy is very strong, performing very well. By most forecasts, we'll have another strong growth year this year. The labor market is extraordinarily tight, extremely tight, historically so, and to the point where really there's an imbalance between supply and demand for workers. And of course, the big issue that we're very focused on is inflation, and getting inflation back down to our 2% goal.
So the Fed wants to try to get inflation back down to somewhere around 2% as fast as possible. Easier said than done. You can let me know your thoughts. Here's what Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen had to say.
I know you're coming off a long week of meetings there in Washington, World Bank and IMF. One of the things I think we learned is we don't only have inflation in the United States, it's sort of a global phenomenon. But talking about the United States specifically, we know your old shop, the Federal Reserve, says they're going to do everything in their power to try to get inflation under control. What are your projections, though, given what you expect maybe the Fed might do? What are your projections over the next 24 months, not just this year, for growth in GDP and for inflation?
Well, the IMF just issued its most recent World Economic Outlook, and they're projecting growth this year of over 3% for the United States, which is after, given that we're almost fully recovered from the pandemic, is a good, strong performance for the United States and consistent with a labor market that will remain very strong. I think, judging by the U.S. unemployment rate now and other measures of the performance of the labor market, it's been decades since we've seen such a strong job market with such excellent employment opportunities for people. You can see that in the high quit rate and the enormous level of job openings. So, the Fed is concerned about inflation. They've made clear that they will be removing accommodation to try to get it under control. But I know they'll try to achieve a soft landing, and with some skill and some luck, we'll have a very good year for the U.S. economy in terms of the job market this coming year.
So are there things, I know that it's the Fed's job, it's part of their mandate to really control prices, and that's their job, and I know you really respect the independence of that organization that you ran. But are there things the administration can or should be doing? And let me be very specific. There's a Peterson Institute study out this week that says that if you took off the so-called Trump tariffs, that would reduce inflation right away 1.3%. I know that's being studied, but inflation is here and now, and it's been coming for a while. Why don't you just do it?
Well, we want to do everything that we can to lower inflation, and the president has announced an unprecedented release of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve that is serving to hold down oil prices. I think gas prices peaked and have now come down some from their peak. We're working very diligently on supply chain issues to get our ports working better, and we're doing what we can to bring down inflation, so that's very important. We're re-examining carefully our trade strategy with respect to China, and I think it's worth considering. We certainly want to do what we can to address inflation, and there would be some desirable effects. It's something we're looking at.
Regarding what they mentioned there, the tariffs that former President Trump added in when we had the trade wars, well, we still do, of course. I mean, we're always in competition with basically every country in the world per se. But when it was more of a hot issue, a little bit more than it is today. I mean, of course, it's still an issue, but when Trump added in those tariffs, what basically happened is it added an additional tax to a large portion of goods that came in from China. What really ended up happening, what Trump wanted to happen, in essence, was for more manufacturing and stuff to happen here in the U.S. Of course, we know that that's a good theory, and that kind of stuff takes time. Maybe some of that stuff happened. Who knows? It's hard to tell. Um, but any companies that stayed manufacturing stuff in China, they basically had to raise their prices. So if something had an extra 10% tax, for example, each price had each good had a different price raised on it, or a different tax, a different tariff. If something had an extra 10% tax on it, just as an example, they would have had to raise their price 10% because they had an extra 10% tariff on it. Okay. So what they're saying there, what they're discussing, something that could be done to reduce inflation is to reduce those tariffs or to get rid of them. You can let me know your thoughts on this. I'm not choosing sides here or anything like that. Some people may have different thoughts on this, but this is something that could be done. Of course, everybody may have a different opinion on this, but we do know a lot of stuff comes from China, and it's just kind of the way things are. I've said this before in the past. If you get a chance to walk down your local store, it could be any store, it could be Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, your local grocery store. Walk down there. It won't pertain to food items, anything that's perishable, milk, eggs, crackers. It really won't pertain to that stuff. But anything that's like plastic, shoes, clothing, toys, anything like that, or even like soap, anything along those lines, right? Walk down an aisle like that and see where it's made. You'll just see that the vast majority of that stuff is not made in the US. And this can be from any manufacturer, any manufacturer. So, I mean, again, it's just kind of the way things are. So the reality of things are is if they reduce tariffs on a large portion of things that are sold in stores, it would reduce the prices that you and I are paying for it. And again, I'm not choosing sides here. I'm just kind of letting you guys know how things work. And it would reduce inflation. It would reduce the price of things. So it could reduce your grocery bill, could reduce your goods bill. So let me know your thoughts on this. Do you think this is something that should be done? Do you think those tariffs worked? Did you think they had the intended consequences? Do you think it's time to let them go, or should they continue to stay there? Let me know your thoughts. Here's something that could be done. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, who's been there for many, many years, actually, through several different presidents, actually, through Trump. Uh, Biden has actually decided they've decided to keep him on. He's just been there for quite a while. Says that the next interest rate hike could be a double interest rate hike. So instead of 1/4%, it could be 0.5%. And they could do 6 more interest rate hikes this year of 1/4% or more. You can see here it's on the table in May, so not that far away, making mortgages, car loans, and credit card interest rates even more pricey. And this is going to continue here. This is just kind of the way economics work, and this is going on all around the world. In fact, the US is actually one of the slower countries to raise interest rates here. Most other countries, including the UK, Europe, and Canada, actually raised interest rates before the US. So, uh, depending on how you look at it, they waited as long as they could. So, if you're paying interest on credit cards or something like that, you could say, well, you saved on interest there, or you could look at it in the other half, say, well, they waited too long to try to bring interest rates down. Really just depends on the way you're looking at it. But on the other hand, you can also say, well, that there's 64% of Americans right now are behind on their bills, living paycheck to paycheck, and struggling and need some help. And in fact, the World Organization, the IMF, just said this, that new temporary aid can help offset inflation hit to families. And this is not a US specific thing necessarily, because as we've learned, you actually even heard them mention in that previous interview that inflation is going on all around the world. If you've been watching my show, you know this, and I kind of tell people this because Republicans like to blame Democrats like to blame Republicans, people like to blame the current president, some people like to blame the past president. Inflation's going on everywhere. Canada's at a 30-year high of inflation. Most of Europe's at 30-year plus highs. China actually had parts of China, or depending on what index you're looking at, actually has inflation higher than us. And Canada has gas near $6 a gallon, where our current rates are at a little bit over 4.10 right now on a national average, and the UK has gas near $8 a gallon. So we're not the only country dealing with this, but the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, says faced with surging inflation that is hitting poor families especially hard, which has sparked unrest in some countries, policymakers should take immediate steps to offset the pain with targeted and temporary relief. IMF chief economist Pierre Garounchens said here this week, quote, "We've seen already in some countries people protesting when they've seen the price of food or basic items increasing very rapidly." This said here in an interview. And this is worldwide, not just in the US. Of course, it's happening here in the US as well. Um, Governments can alleviate impact of price jumps with, quote, targeted measures to try to support vulnerable populations, which can include steps like utility bill discounts or direct payments to poor families, like stimulus checks. In fact, if you just see my recent video about new money approved, they actually just approved hundreds of millions of dollars for a total of billions of dollars in utility assistance that you can claim now. It is available for all states. I know a few people were a little bit confused about that in the video I did, because the article only listed some states, but it is available for all states here, for the new money of utility assistance that is available, through the LIHEAP program or the LEAP program. LEAP is really the same thing, just without the H, which is for heating. It's maybe a little bit confusing, but I did want to mention that here in this video. But you can get anywhere from a couple $100 to $1,000 or more per year, and you can get that sometimes every single year, or sometimes potentially even more than once a year, with utility assistance help. Also, you can get rent assistance and mortgage assistance. I've had thousands of people here on our channel, viewers of our channel, I should say, that have gotten this or rent assistance and mortgage assistance. Rent assistance and mortgage assistance were just approved from the last stimulus package, and include, you can get your rent paid 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, or more. And it kind of goes where you just apply if you're low income, if you've been affected by the pandemic. Some states require you to be behind on rent. Same thing with utilities, but some states do not. So that's why, really, if you're just low income, I really just recommend you apply, because if you get it, it's awesome. It's basically money just from the government that will help you. This is money that's already approved and it's available. And if I show you in the last video that basically there's an article that says from Forbes that 90% of families do not know about this money and do not just go out. They don't go out and claim it because they don't know about it. So that's why I'm here to try to help out as many people as possible, because there is billions and billions and billions of dollars in utility assistance. There's $15 billion in rent assistance that's still available. And there's almost $10 billion in homeowners assistance. When you add all three of those up, for rent assistance, I think there was $46 billion in rent assistance that was available, and there's $15 billion. And there could be even more money passed in the next stimulus package, if and when that happens. Of course, there's these state packages as well. We know states are passing stimulus checks. I'll link you to a video I just did with a pretty big update on a lot of states on that. I'll be keeping you up to date on states on that. There's also an update on the federal stimulus checks on that as well. And I just did a big update on Social Security raises here as well, because the federal poverty level was raised here as well, which could be affecting that here going forward. And the federal poverty level also affects some things, like food stamps and stuff like that going forward here as well. So really, there's a lot of things going on here that I will keep up to date here as well. A lot of these states are sitting on billions of dollars with a B because each state got over $1 billion from the last stimulus package. Each state is deciding how to spend their money differently. And I'll keep you up to date here as I find as much information as I can about all 50 states. We're working as hard as we can trying to find this information. Some states are doing a little bit more than others. Some states might do some next year. A lot of states are having additional money that they might do some this year and next year. You look at like states like California that did a $600 stimulus check last year and $1,100 for people with children, basically get an extra $500 if you had children. And they're looking to do a check this year as well because they have $45 billion this year now after they did a check last year. So I think that a lot of states are going to potentially be like that here again this year, where we're kind of covering all the states that are doing checks this year or proposing checks this year or proposing pausing the gas tax or the grocery tax or doing property tax checks, also called property tax rebates. But I also think that some states might have leftover money for next year as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I'll keep you up to date here with everything you guys need to know about. So make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel. It's completely free to do so, literally costs nothing. You just click the subscribe button and then click the bell icon after subscribing. It appears next to the subscribe button, and I'll keep you up to date here with everything. You can click this button here to see about the utility assistance and rent assistance I just mentioned in my new video. This top video over here is about the Social Security raises. I just did it in a video. And this bottom video over here is about the state and federal stimulus checks. I just did a video on that. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.